Family farming is a large part of the history of Joe Daviess County. The hills to the valleys, there used to be a multitude of farms on every road. Jacob Haas and Friederike Brody came to Joe Daviess County emigrating from Germany and bought the original Haas family farm. There have now been 5 generations of the family on the land, with many more to come. There have been many changes on the farm through the years. In visiting the Haas family, a great deal can be learned about history, family, and farming. Jacob Hos, having served in the German army, came to the United States in search of a better life. Friederike Brody came to join Jacob in 1903, and they were married in 1905.
Other members of family and friends from the area where they lived had moved to this area, and you had to be sponsored by another person who was already here and had a home and could give you a job. And you had to work for a year at this person's place, and then you could go out and then purchase a farm or work elsewhere.
The original Haas family farm was purchased in 1904, consisting of 396 acres, a very large farm for that time. The farm had a house which the family lived in for 16 years. Jacob and Friederike had 8 children, 2 of which passed away at childhood, not uncommon for that time period. In return for the generosity he received in a sponsorship to America, Jacob went on to sponsor 4 men from Germany. Farming was in the family, and it stayed that way. Gus, their middle child, began to take over the farm. Gus was married to Irma Grosinger in 1942. They had 5 children. While farming at the home farm, Gus continued to make many improvements. He designed and built the corn crib, as well as adding other buildings, including the hog house, which he used lumber from the first house on the farm. Gus worked hard to take care of the land and used good conservation practices. Gus worked with the Civilian Conservation Corps, young men looking for work and vocational training, to come to the farm and put terraces in that would limit soil erosion. Gus also played an important role in getting electricity to rural areas. Gus not only attended the first meeting at Elizabeth High School for what would become Joe Carroll, but also became a long-standing board member of the cooperative. It was while Gus was farming that major changes occurred in farming practices. When Gus took over farming from Jacob, all of the farming was done by horses. Gus purchased the first tractor for the farm. As time progressed, he was able to purchase a second tractor. It was at that point that all the horses on the farm were sold, and Gus was known to say that there would never be horses on the farm again, which is held true to this day. World War II brought about special challenges for the Haas family.
Sugar, so much flour, so much...
Things are rationed.
Rationing,
And even machinery, if you had the money to buy the machinery, you probably couldn't get it.
No,
or you had to get on a list because
metal
was going to the war equipment.
One of the greatest challenges that they faced was that Gus's brother, Fred, was serving in the army. Fred was in many battles and returned home a hero with a Purple Heart. One of the highlights for the family was when they hosted Deer Days in 1948. The John Deere Company came to the farm to take pictures of the land and the company's equipment. Gus was featured in many photos. After several days of taking pictures, one photo was chosen and became part of the 1950 John Deere calendar. Gus and Irma continued to raise their family on the original acres. It was also at this time that Gus bought the neighboring farm, adding an additional 134 acres to what was already being farmed. Family and church were a strong influence and social connection in their lives, and their children found lots of fun on the farm.
Oh, I remember Connie and I would go play in the sandbox when we were real little, or open the trunk of our car and we would color in the trunk of our car. We would the kitty cats. We would have kitty cats and dress them up in doll clothes, but we could never have them in the house. And if we did, we snuck them in real fast before Dad, because Dad didn't believe in having animals in the house at all. So that was always fun times. We had, and we'd always go up to John, the neighbors. We'd walk up to John and Lorraine and play with their kids a lot of times. At nighttime, after we made hay, we would be either swimming in the Apple River or playing ball.
Great celebrations on the farm were held, including weddings. The tradition continued for the family in that as Gus got older, Ken began to take over more and more of the farming as Gus very gradually became less active on the farm. Ken was married to Susan Hamblin in 1970. Their family includes 4 sons. Once moving to the farmhouse originally built by Jacob, they continued to make improvements. In 1972, Ken bought an additional farm, increasing the total acres owned by the family to 662. With more land came more work, but the family enjoyed it.
I think the kids find it.
one of the
They
main-
always were brought out food. That always helps. If we had a lot of work to do, we would make it into a, let's see if we could beat the record on how many square bales we could put up at 90 degrees to 100.
Ken followed the traditions of the family and the trends of the area and continued milking cows for many years. On September 3, 2001, the Haas family farms had their final day of milking cows. Having had beef cows on the farm for several years, they made the transition to a beef and grain farm. As the farm continued to grow and as practices continued to change, more changes happened on the farm. Tractors continued to get bigger, more equipment was purchased, an additional combine was needed, and more land was rented. Bigger and better machinery not only decreased the amount of help that was needed on the farm, but also allowed for the possibilities of renting or purchasing more land. By 2015, the Haas family farms, now called River Hill Farms, are renting what used to be 10 individual family farms. Another highlight for the family was the centennial celebration in 2005.
Celebration of the farm being in the family 100 years.
We are estimating somewhere between 500 and 600 people came to the farm. We had about 2 hours of people talking about their memories on the farm. We had an ex-rec representative and Representative Seisha gave the presentation of the plaque to us.
With the farm on the banks of the Apple River, the family is always ready for some kind of flood. In the last 20 years, there have been 2 100-year floods reaching levels to damage both buildings and crops. In 2009, the farmhouse that had been home to generations of the Haas family was lost to a fire. While no one was in the home at the time, family and friends gathered for the evening to support Ken and Sue as well as each other during this difficult time. By the end of 2010, a new home was built at the site of the original house. The new house continues as the site of many family gatherings and celebrations. Each summer, the Gus and Irma Hos family gather for a weekend at the family farm. With over 70 members, this is a true representation of everything that Gus and Irma stood for: family first. The third generation, Ken Hos, currently owns River Hill Farms, with the fourth generation, Randy, working right beside him. The fifth generation is enjoying the land and learning from their grandfather and uncle of what it means to be part of the Haas family and be on the family farm, just as their great-great-grandfather and great-grandfather would have wanted. The farm has changed a great deal over the last 111 years, and the Haas family continues to prepare for what the future holds, from self-propelled tractors and other technology, and ongoing changes in government regulations and many other unknowns. This farm and this family will continue to adapt to the changing times. From Jacob and Frederica to Gus and Irma to Ken and Sue, the farm has seen many changes, many celebrations, and many hardships. Members of the Haas family have been a part of history, served our country, and so much more. Through it all, the family has been there for each other, worked with each other, never given up on each other or the land.
Starts with a family planting a little seed. Say a prayer that the roots grow deep, 'cause it's all grown naturally.